Let's talk a little bit about shame. Shame can go many different ways. Some people like to shame other people. They like to make you feel ashamed of your actions. At that point, you have to ask yourself, should I really be ashamed? Is this something that I really shouldn't have done? Or are they making me feel ashamed for who I am or for providing for my family in the way that I have? At that point, you have to look at them and consider the source. For example, you might have heard about that crazy lady. I think she was from Kentucky, and she worked in the office that handed out marriage licenses. And she decided that she wasn't going to give any marriage licenses to the gay people, that they couldn't get married under her watch. Well, turns out she's been married 4 times. I guess she couldn't give them a marriage license because she had used them all. Consider the source. Don't let somebody like that shame you. Don't let somebody shame you for who you love or who you are taking care of or who you are helping. If, however, you look at their words and you think, well, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. That is a behavior of which I am not proud. Then you have to promise yourself 2 things. Number 1, that you won't do it again. And number 2, that you'll let the past stay in the past. The only reason to keep beating yourself up for a mistake you made in the past is if you continue to make it. In that case, yeah, maybe you need to remind yourself that that's not a good way to behave. Now let's look at why people might shame you. In my community, Native American culture, we talk about guilt, blame, shame. They're on a triangle. They always go together. If someone is shaming you, they're trying to make you feel guilty. They're trying to blame you for something. Now, we've already looked at the kind of person who would do that. And here's the crux of the situation. They're trying to look at you and judge you because they don't want people to look at them and point fingers at them for their behavior. You know, like being married 4 different times. So they figure that if they point at you and show everybody that you're misbehaving, you're not being right, you should be shamed, then they hope people won't look at them and people won't notice that they have made mistakes in their life as well. That's called armoring. They are protecting themselves from judgment by pointing the finger at other people, hoping that everybody looks at everybody they're pointing at and doesn't look at them. So don't fall for that crap. Now let's look at going out. What if you're ashamed of other people? And like you're ashamed of the way somebody in your family acts, or you're ashamed of the way your community is behaving, or you're ashamed of the way that your state has made laws, or you're ashamed of your country or your country's leaders. In all of these cases, we are feeling shame for what other people have done. And on one level, that's a good thing because it shows you that you know right from wrong and that you wouldn't act in those ways. But our responses are rather limited. We can try to correct our children, but if you have children, you probably know they don't always listen, do they? Especially if they're teenagers or older. You can tell them, you shouldn't do that. That's really a bad way to act. You're going to mess your life up. And it falls on deaf ears. They'll do as they damn well please. And in many cases, our politicians are the same way. Now, we can change our vote. If we have enough resources, we can move to a different state or even a different country if we're so inclined. But there are many people that don't have that kind of resources. And they have a job that's here, or they have family that's here, or they have doctors that are here. Many reasons that we don't want to leave where we are. So what can we do in that situation? Well, you've seen a lot of people protest, and sometimes that gets things moving. At least it makes people pay attention, hopefully. Hopefully the news media will cover it. Hopefully the politicians will be aware and act accordingly, but that's not always guaranteed. At some point, we have to say to ourselves, there's nothing I can do. I can only do so much. And at that point, we have to recognize the fact that we are not the same as those people. We should not be ashamed of their actions because we aren't the ones doing it. They are. I know it's stressful. I know it's difficult. Believe me, I have loved ones, children, who act in ways that I wish they wouldn't. But what can you do? Your circle of influence only goes so far. You know, our vote only goes so far. Our letters to people and politicians and people in power only goes so far. Our communication with our children only goes so far. So we have to be resolved that this is all I can control. You know, my ability to control things ends where my body stops. You know, I can't make the rest of the world act like I would like them to, much to my chagrin. It's not in our best mental health interest to stress over these things past a point. We do what we can. We protest. We might write things on social media. We might call our senators or stuff like that. We might give lectures to our children. We might send them articles or bits of information that might influence them, we hope. But at some point, we can't do any more. And that's when we have to say to ourselves, I've done the best I can. Everyone has free will, and they're going to have to deal with the ramifications of their behavior, whether it's going to jail, getting impeached, going to the hospital because you ruined your health. Whatever it is, I can't save you from yourself. I can only save myself. And I can only do what's right for me.